just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, Brunning, Bruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. We are firing up week 7 of the NFL season tonight. 2 teams on a bye, the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, but that means we have 15 teams that will be in action again this week, concluding the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are the Thursday night game. Dennis, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers doing battle. It's a battle of old guys so astounding. It's amazing we're not there in person. But, Joe Flacco made his first start Sunday. I thought Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins looked a little bit better. He was throwing the ball. Do you think that continues tonight?
So, had a guy today at work refer to this game. He's a Browns fan. He referred to tonight's game with Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco as the icy hot bowl after the muscle liniment that you rub on when you're sore. Thought that gave me a chuckle. Clearly you didn't, but.
No, I saw that they marketed it as the icy hot bowl online.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so I'm guessing it was some company or one of the fantasy football sites. I saw memes of it the last couple of days.
Okay, I wonder where I've been. All right, so we got Chase at wide receiver 5 and Higgins at wide receiver 47. Last week, Higgins did a little bit better. After just one game over 30 pass attempts in the first 4 weeks, the Bengals have been over 40 pass attempts the last 2 weeks. I think that will continue with Joe Flacco. We talked about it on Tuesday. His time to throw was fast. He was getting rid of the ball. I do think it benefits Ja'Marr Chase more so than T. Higgins. But once they get it loosened up a little bit and they're getting the ball out and the defense gets it back on their heels a little bit, there'll be a little more room for Chase Brown to run. He had his most efficient game last week. Gesicki's out, so I think if you're desperate for a tight end, this may be a chance for you to throw Noah Fant into your lineup and maybe have a streamable tight end there. But yeah, I would suspect that Flacco's going to throw the ball a lot. Yeah, even against the Steelers and TJ Watt. So you're firing up Chase. I expect Higgins to continue to rise. We're not going to get past that the O-line is bad in Cincinnati. I think the only thing worse than the O-line in Cincinnati is the defense in Cincinnati. So
yeah. Meanwhile, for the Steelers, they continue to use a gaggle of tight ends. Last week, they got Cam Hayward involved, Darnell Washington, Jonnu Smith, and then they did save one measly target for Pat Freiermuth. You'd like to be able to start one of the tight ends since wide receiver's not great. No Calvin Austin again tonight, but are you starting any of these tight ends with confidence?
I'm starting Noah Fant with much more confidence than any Pittsburgh Steeler tight end.
Noah Fant kind of has no competition anymore with Gesicki and Hudson.
Exactly. And it's not Honestly, I don't know that there's necessarily competition in Pittsburgh. It's just Arthur Smith doing shit. It should be Pat Freiermuth. It should be Jonnu Smith. I love me some super freak Darnell Washington, but he's the third or fourth guy. And he's the third guy. Connor Haywood is the fourth guy, who's kind of a hybrid fullback guy. And, with Gainwell and Jaylen Warren both healthy, running pretty well, it should be a very simple task, but Arthur Smith hates our fantasy teams. And so he's going to use, would anybody be surprised if Roman Wilson got 8 targets tonight?
I mean, I'd be mildly surprised. The highest ranked tight end for the Steelers is Jonnu Smith, but he's only tight end 35. As a reminder, there's only 32 teams in the NFL. I am also not starting any of them, but I am taking the Steelers.
So am I. I'm tempted to go Bengals, but
I'm not even tempted. The final London game sees the 4-2 Los Angeles Rams at the 4-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. This one actually could be a good matchup, which scares me because they sent it to London. Puka Nacua is still questionable, was a non-participant. They said even if he plays, he would have a limited role. So how are you feeling about Davante Adams?
Feel great about Davante Adams. He's wide receiver 14 on the year with Puka being generally healthy. He's been averaging 9 targets a game with Puka healthy. That'll notch up a couple. I think Tutu Atwell's out. So it'll be Kyren Williams, Tyler Higbee. Now there's your real tight end streamer, Tyler Higbee. He could have top 5 tight end value this week. But it'll be Williams, it'll be Higbee. Davante Adams will probably get 14 or 15 targets. And then Jordan Whittington, and I forget who else they got there. Not that it matters, but
no, it was probably going to be Adams and Higbee. That's kind of what we saw after Puka went out, and Kyren had that big managed to get a butt cheek down. That seemed to please the NFL highlight guys. For the Jaguars, quietly Trevor Lawrence maybe figuring things out with his new coach. He is quarterback 14 on the season. Do you feel good about him in Superflex leagues?
Yeah, I guess. I'm nervous about the Rams defense. They have done a great job moving on from Sam Darnold, Aaron Donald's retirement. Jared Verse has come on. Byron Young has come on. They've got this thing where they just keep rotating young safeties in on the back end. They had, who's the linebacker they had last year that they let walk? Christian Rosenboom. So they've got 3 positions or 4 positions on their defense that they just draft a rookie, play him for 2 or 3 seasons, replace him with another rookie that does the exact same thing. And that's how they're able to kind of support the premium positions on their team. Lawrence was QB4 over the last 2 weeks. That was swayed by a 54-yard rushing game with 2 rushing touchdowns against Kansas City. I don't know that he's going to be able to run like that against the Rams. They're kind of middle of the pack in pass yards and rush yards, but they get the 3rd highest amount of sacks in the NFL. So Trevor will be under pressure. Jacksonville's kind of mid when it comes to giving up sacks. So they're going to have their offensive line's going to have to step up, maybe play a little bit over their head. I did hear a little bit this week. Who's the coach there? Liam Cohen saying they need to get the plan is to get Travis Hunter some more wide receiver 1 looks, and Brian Thomas has come on. So they do have they've got a couple really good wide receivers. I think the pass rush of the Rams is going to be problematic. I don't think it's going to be a blowout win or anything for the Rams, but I do think the Rams are going to win.
Yep, I took the Rams as well. On to regular Sunday games, the 1-5 New Orleans Saints at 3-2 Chicago Bears. Dennis, the Saints may be 1-5, but I mentioned on Tuesday I've been a little impressed with Spencer Rattler. He's QB 20 through 6 weeks of the season. Is he a super flex consideration for you?
I think so. He could have top 16 potential this week. He'd be higher if he was converting more touchdowns. He's coming into the game with a 6-1 TD to interception ratio. And while the ratio is great, the overall production isn't there. But the Bears are bottom 3 in sacks, bottom 4 in quarterback hits. And they give up the highest passing touchdown rate at 9.3%. So the Bears defense can be had in the passing game. And they've got Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and Juwan Johnson. So there is some value to that passing game for New Orleans. I just think they need to continue to take steps. It feels like Rattler probably isn't the long-term answer, but getting a year of experience and the team playing hard for Kellen Moore and for Spencer Rattler might put them in a pretty good position going forward.
Meanwhile, DJ Moore, wide receiver 51 on the season, not quite as involved as we had hoped. He was in the hospital with something undisclosed. He's back to a limited practice, but are you weary about playing him?
Yeah, I think, if he gets a full practice in tomorrow, I'll probably feel okay. I mean, he's out there playing and running routes. He's had over 84% of the snaps in 4 of the 5 games. He's third on the team in targets, second on the team in receptions and touchdowns. Just that Bears offense just sometimes bogs down and sometimes becomes one-dimensional. We saw last week DeAndre Swift was the guy in the running game and the passing game. He just dominated it. We've seen that happen with Rome Odunze. So I think DJ Moore is going to be fine. I think your expectations are probably a wide receiver 3 ceiling. So I would expect him, as long as he's healthy and that offense just continues to gel and get better, he'll move up, and he's on the field, so he's going to get his opportunities.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bears.
I'm picking the Bears too.
Next up, a real banger of a game, the 1-5 Miami Dolphins at the 1-5 Cleveland Browns. It came out today that there could be 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts impacting this game. Tua, quarterback 18 on the season so far, but been real up and down, been very turnover prone the last few weeks. How are you feeling about him as a super flex option? Oops. Did you hear my question?
Can't hear you.
So definitely some concerns about the weather situation that's going on for this Browns Dolphins game. The potential of 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts is no joke. So, would that make you think twice about putting Tua in your lineup?
Yeah, Tua doesn't have the strongest arm. So if the wind is blowing pretty hard. Now, I guess the other side of that equation is they also don't throw the ball down the field real far a lot. They take some shots, but with Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle and the crossing patterns, they do make a lot of plays close to the line. Tua is kind of in the same region as Spencer Rattler. They're back-to-back in passing yards. Tua's doubled him up in touchdowns, 11-6, but I just think overall the feelings around the Dolphins versus how it feels around the Browns are just different. And it doesn't feel, super great around the Browns, but it feels bad around the Dolphins. I think if you have Tua, he's probably startable as your QB2.
Yeah. For the Browns, Harold Fannin has been killing it. He is tight end 12 through 6 games. There's a lot of buzz coming out that Jerome Ford and David Njoku could be the Browns veterans that are on the move. Are you feeling better about Fannin being a weekly start?
He's played 80+% of the snaps the last 3 weeks, and he's getting volume. He leads the team in receptions, second in targets behind Judy. David Njoku's tight end 15, so it's not like he's left Njoku in the dust completely. Njoku's second on the team in receptions behind Fannin, so both Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco were both kind of targeting these two tight ends, and it's continuing. Fannin, it just seems, Njoku's a little bit banged up, and it feels like teams are maybe a little more focused on Judy and Njoku, which leaves Fannin available or open a little bit more. We could see that switch if he continues to outperform Njoku. They'll start to rotate coverage away from Njoku and onto Fannin, and that'll likely open up production for Njoku.
I am taking the Browns.
So am I.
The 4-2 New England Patriots at the 1-5 Tennessee Titans. Dennis, we've been waiting all season for TreVeyon Henderson to take off. We liked the talent. We liked the potential of the landing spot. But even with Antonio Gibson gone last week, only 4.6 PBR points. He's only running back 38 on the season, averaging less than 8 points per game. And now the rumors bubbling up that the Patriots are in the market to try to trade for a running back. How does that leave you feeling about Henderson as an option?
It kind of feels like Mike Vrabel is turning into one of those I won't play rookies kind of coaches unless I absolutely have to. I mean, Henderson's the most talented running back in New England. He's only playing 38% of the snaps, though, and Stevenson has started all 6 games. The touch differential isn't very large. It's 51 rushes to 41 for Henderson, and Henderson's gained almost as many yards. The passing work, it's a little bit of an edge towards TreVeyon Henderson, except for Ramondre Stevenson has a pretty good size edge in receiving yards. Just Henderson's getting a little more receiving work. I think there's a little bit of Henderson maybe adjusting a little slower to the NFL defenses than we thought, and that may be part of it. He doesn't always get the right block or get the right block fast enough in pass protection. I think they're going to basically platoon the rest of the way with Gibson out, but it's the Drake May show. So I would expect each of these guys to have a couple games where they're, high-end RB2s, but they're going to be bouncing around the low-end RB2, RB3, RB4 on a week-to-week basis, and you're just not going to be sure which guy it's going to be.
Meanwhile, rookie Cam Ward lost his head coach. Mike McCoy steps in. How are you feeling about him in this game?
Well, I don't think he lost him. I think when he came to work, somebody else was doing the job, as Bobcat Goldthwait would say. He's a hard bench for fantasy right now. I mean,
I'd rather have Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, easily I would rather have Spencer Rattler, even with Rattler not throwing very many touchdowns. But you got a gimpy Calvin Ridley, the coaching change to Mike McCoy, who, I don't think excited anybody. I know Tyjae Spears is back, but that's really the Tony Pollard show. Maybe we have a, what do they call that? A dead cat bounce this week.
I I mean, Ward's still QB 33 on the season, has only had one game with double-digit points. Here are some of the people he's behind. Russell Wilson, who was benched 3 weeks ago. Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco, Jake Browning, who was benched for Joe Flacco. It's ugly.
It is. This has got to be a growing season for him, and he's going to have to find out how he's got to figure out how to do the work himself, because the coaches that are there now aren't going to be there next year, and it'll be easy for him to say, I don't need to listen to you because you're not going to be here. But then that going to give him a reputation of being difficult and hard to work with, and that doesn't do anybody any good. The unfortunate thing is that a new head coach coming in, he's not going to have as much runway to improve before that new coach wants to get his guy, whether it's a veteran or whether it's draft somebody else. So he has to turn it around. I just think it's going to be a slow process.
I'm taking the Patriots.
So am I.
Divisional matchup, the 2-4 Las Vegas Raiders at the 3-3 Kansas City Chiefs. Geno Smith still, I believe, leading the league in interceptions. Quarterback 22 on the season. I'm not optimistic about him against the Chiefs this week. Are you?
I am not. Pete Carroll in Vegas still believes, but it's
well, if your only other option was Kenny Pickett, you two also might believe.
Yeah. But at what point do they give Pickett a shot? I mean, and that's more rhetorical than anything. Brock Bowers is hurt. Ashton Genty's not really bringing the fire we had hoped consistently. They lost their left tackle, Colton Miller, who's trying to work his way back. Jacoby Myers hasn't put up the numbers we had thought. Geno's been under 200 passing yards 4 of 6 games. He's one of the lowest of low-end QB2s for Superflex. It's getting rough out there.
Well, I think he's only right there too because we've seen some guys splitting the job, and because he's played 6 games, I'm not a fan. Rashee Rice, cleared from his suspension, is going to play this week. How are you approaching him as a lineup option?
I think if you roster him, you've waited 6 weeks. He's fully healthy. He knows the offense. He's got chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. Jeremy Fowler said he's going to have a significant role. They are not going to ease him in. He'll be featured heavily. I think I would not be the least bit surprised if he put up a wide receiver 1 week. The challenge now will be what happens with that passing game overall. We've seen Xavier Worthy be explosive. We've seen Hollywood Brown. Is Travis Kelce going to get pinched because Rice kind of is the intermediate guy? I think that Kelce and Brown will both feel a little bit of a decrease in their opportunities. But, yeah, I think Rashee Rice hits the ground running or hits the ground catching, I should say.
I'm taking the Chiefs.
So am I.
4-2 Philadelphia Eagles at the 3-2 Minnesota Vikings. Dennis, for as great as he was last year, Saquon Barkley only running back 12 through 6 weeks, averaging about 14.9 points per game. Do you think we're going to see him pick it up and approach the levels he had last year, or is this kind of what you're expecting for the rest of this season?
So I think this is really 2 separate questions. Do I think we're going to see him pick it up? Yes. Do I think we're going to see him approach the levels of last year? No. So he's RB12 on the year. He is a really good all-around running back. Good with the ball in his hand, good in the passing game. There is no running back on that team that's a threat to his volume. it really comes down to how well do the Eagles play overall. Are they playing well enough to keep A.J. Brown happy? You know, we've seen Dallas Goedert have some really nice games, and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem like he's throwing the ball quite as well as he has in the past. But I think he's going to be, he being Saquon Barkley, he's going to be just fine. If you drafted him thinking you were going to get the RB1 production this year after over 500 touches last year, I don't know what to tell you. At RB12, is he a couple spots behind where I kind of expected? Yeah, but he's not out of line. I think he maybe finishes RB8 or 9.
Yeah, I mean, still a very quality start. Meanwhile, for the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy, he said he's not 100%. He is back at practice. He is listed as questionable. They have not made a final decision. If he starts, how confident would you be about putting him in your Superflex lineup?
I am confident that he's going to be a low-end QB2 or QB3 because that's what he was before he got injured. He was a sub 60% completion rate quarterback his first 2 weeks. He had a 2-to-5 touchdown to interception ratio. Honestly, if I'm the Vikings, I'm going to start Carson Wentz as long as I can. We know. So here's what we know about Carson Wentz, especially at this stage of his career. He's either going to break down or melt down. Play him until he does, then go back to J.J. McCarthy. Let McCarthy get 110% healthy. Let him get settled back in. I think we're still a week or two away from McCarthy getting back in there. And for that reason, I am going to go ahead and take the Vikings at home.
I'm taking the Eagles. You are correct. McCarthy was, by the very letter of the law, QB2, QB 24 through 2 weeks. I just didn't think he looked great outside of one 10-minute stretch in that Chicago game where the Chicago Bears, I don't even think it was a full quarter. It was like one stretch where the Bears collapsed. He was pretty bad. They could still be a playoff team, it looks like, with Carson Wentz. I would stick with them, but I'm taking the Eagles.
Now, Carolina, I will say I'm going to switch to the Eagles if McCarthy starts this week. But with the expectation Wentz starts, I'm taking the Vikings.
The Carolina Panthers 3-3 at the 0-6 New York Jets. We mentioned, the performance of Rico Dowdle was going to raise some eyebrows. There's been a lot of reports about Chuba Hubbard working hard to try to solidify his position in that backfield. It looks like he's going to be healthy and ready to go in week 7. What do the Panthers do?
I think they play them both. And, Bryce Young is a decent quarterback. He's not a phenomenal game changer at quarterback just yet. Can he continue to develop and get there? Sure, maybe. But Dowdle's averaging 33.2 points per game over the last 2 weeks. Hubbard averaged 14 points per game. And so it's, Hubbard did not provide any explosiveness, and Dowdle is doing that. I think I probably expect if Hubbard is 100% healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the game, but Dowdle gets 60% of the opportunities because he's been blowing up with it. I mean, the Jets give up the 10th most rush yards per game. It could very well be 75 yards for Hubbard and 125 yards for Dowdle.
Meanwhile, for the Jets, Garrett Wilson doubtful. Josh Reynolds also injured with a hip injury, has been limited in practice. The Jets do not have a good passing offense really to begin with. I know it's not a terrible matchup, but is there any Jets pass catcher you're feeling confident about starting?
I mean, it's Mason Taylor, right? I mean, that's pretty much it.
Brees might catch a few out of the backfield. I think that was what I was thinking. Mason Taylor would probably be my only YOLO. Otherwise, even though it's the Panthers,
I mean, Tyler Johnson is there. Tyler Johnson's there, and he had some smoke coming out of college, but their practice squad are a bunch of guys I haven't heard of. So,
Yeah.
and I like to think I'm fairly in the know. So Arian Smith will get an opportunity. If Lazard is healthy or can play, he'll do something. But you got Reynolds banged up. It's not.
Lazard isn't on the injury list. He was out the last few weeks, so it looks like he'll come back. But man, if that's your best option, oof. I am taking the Panthers on the road.
So am I.
2-4 New York Giants at the 4-2 Denver Broncos. Jackson Dart has been pretty good, had a solid first start at home, struggled a little bit in a road game against a fairly aggressive defense, had some turnovers, looked bad in New Orleans, was a little bit better at home where they didn't seem to have any pass rush from the Eagles. Going to face Denver, a team that just sacked Justin Fields 9 times, leads the NFL in sacks. How are we feeling about Jackson Dart?
So Dart's QB8 over the last 3 weeks, and he didn't look great last week. This is going to be a real test for Dart. Denver defense leads the NFL in sacks, but they've only grabbed 1 interception though. So that's a feels like an oddity to me. But this with a rookie quarterback and these cover guys that Denver has, the Denver pass rush, and the fact that Denver gives up the 4th fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks, it feels like Jackson Dart's going to be hemmed in a little bit, and he doesn't have Malik Neighbors. They're going to ram Cam Scatteraboo up the middle, and I would expect he'll have a fairly inefficient day. I think Dart will be startable as a QB2 in Superflex, but I'm not expecting a big day out of him.
Meanwhile, for Denver, Evan Ingram banged up a little bit to start the season, but has finally caught a little bit of fire. He is tight end 13 over the last 2 weeks. How are you feeling about him in this game against the Giants?
He's been averaging over 6 targets a game, which is great. That's finally getting some volume. But he has yet to surpass 50% of the snaps in any game this season, though he is 3rd on the team in targets per game with 5, and 3rd on the team in receptions per game at 3.4. So he clearly has established a role. He's the probably 3rd passing option on this team. It's Cortland Sutton, it's Troy Franklin, and then it's Evan Ingram and Marvin Mims. So I think that Evan Ingram will be fine and continue to kind of rise up the ranks, but he's not going to – I don't see him being in, one of these, Travis Kelce 10, 12, 14 target per game for multiple games in a row kind of thing. He's going to have to make his hay on that 5, 6, 7 target range.
I am taking the Broncos.
So am I.
The probably best game of the late window, the 5-1 Indianapolis Colts at the 4-2 Los Angeles Chargers. Oddly enough, a battle of not only division leaders, but the current number 1 seed in the AFC. Welcome to 2025. Indiana Jones, quarterback 7 through 6 weeks, averaging more than 20 points per game, actually a little better than Justin Herbert on the season. Even though it's on the road against the Chargers, we've made him an every week start, even in single QB, right?
If he's not getting it done with his arm, he's getting it done with his legs. They have Jonathan Taylor to take the pressure off, and we got Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and Tyler Warren. You've got lots of weapons in the passing game. So, the Chargers give up the 2nd most rushing yards to quarterbacks. So I would probably expect a little something from Daniel Jones in that regard. And because the Chargers have, suffered some injuries on both sides of the ball, I think it's just, everything is falling into place for the Colts against the Chargers here.
Meanwhile, Kamani Vidal went from practice squad to starter and finished as RB9 last week, saying Hassan Haskins who. Are you starting him with confidence in this week against the Colts?
More like Husan Haskins.
Exactly. That was a better joke. Good job.
Yeah. One game is not a trend. But I think Kamani Vidal is the back that I'd be starting. They've got a lot of injuries to the offensive line for the Chargers. But with their weapons, they can kind of make some plays in the passing game. I think Quentin Johnston's back mostly healthy this week. And then you've got Keenan. Ladd McConkey finally had the kind of game I think a lot of people expected him to have on a weekly basis. So
probably because Quentin Johnston was out.
Yeah. And so for me, I think Vidal is the back that he's gonna get the opportunity to lose the primary role here. I think we'll see Haskins maybe in some short yardage stuff as a change of pace guy. But overall, I think Kamani Vidal in the passing game are what the Chargers are going to have to do if they want to try to win this game. I just think right now, I think the Colts are healthier. I think they're in better shape, and I'm going Colts.
I am also taking the Colts. The 3-3 Washington Commanders at the 2-3-1 Dallas Cowboys. Dennis, how are we feeling about our friend Bill Krosky-Merritt?
So Bill sits at RB25 on the year. Now the Cowboys give up the fourth most fantasy points to running backs. And they're also in the passing game giving up the fourth most passing yards, and overall run game, they're giving up the fourth most rushing yards. So what I'm trying to say is the Cowboys defense is bad, and they're going against Jaden Daniels. This feels like it's going to be a shootout because Washington's going to be able to, I almost think, even with Terry McLaurin out and Debo banged up a little bit, I think Washington.
Neither of them practicing. They need old Bill.
And Noah Brown got put on IR. So, it's the Luke McCaffrey show this week.
Chris Moore. I will not accept Chris Moore slander after last week.
Zach Ertz, who knows? Maybe we see a little bit of Ben Sinnott this week, finally.
It looks like they use him as a blocker, which bums me out.
The Commanders, I think, are going to ride Jaden Daniels in the running game and let him make some plays with his legs to allow the passing game to open up, which will then allow the running game to open up for Bill. I feel like it's going to be one of those kind of weird back and forth games. So, Dallas is going to be playing from behind. And while Javonte Williams started off hot, he's kind of cooled off a little bit. Washington gives up the 9th most passing yards. They should. Yeah. Looks like Dallas is getting CeeDee Lamb back this week. So Pickens has been smoking hot. It could be a game where they just both teams are just, last guy with the ball wins.
Yeah, I'm excited to get Lamb back. He said that he is planning on playing with no limitations, so it could be wheels up for them. And number 1 tight end, Jake Ferguson. I am actually taking the Cowboys.
I'm going to take the Commanders.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's my Dallas goggles. We'll see. 3-1-1 Green Bay Packers at the woeful 2-4 Arizona Cardinals. How are you feeling about rookie Matthew Golden?
I think Golden, the concept of Matthew Golden is great. He's a first-round pick. The Packers haven't spent a first-round pick on a wide receiver since 1846. This is the guy. I honestly think Christian Watson is going to come back and take a big chunk of that downfield game that they had hoped Golden would establish. And Romeo Dobbs he's planted his flag, and he's the intermediate guy, he's the red zone guy. And then you got Josh Jacobs grinding it out. I think at wide receiver 58, I don't know how much higher Matthew Golden's. I think his ceiling is probably low end wide receiver 3.
Yeah, his chance, I think you're right, was when Reed got injured and Watson was still out. They're close to getting Watson back. Reed will be eligible to come back. I think it was the beginning of November. It just, there's not enough there this year for me with Matthew Golden either. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, kind of a last-minute scratch last week. He's still banged up, but he is practicing on a limited basis. If he gets the start, are you trusting him here?
Trust is relative. Like, I trust him to be a QB2, mid to low-end QB2. He's QB 17 on the season. I mean, Jacoby Brissett scored more fantasy points last week than Kyler Murray has all in any game all season. So, and then have you heard, is Harrison back? I know he had the concussion. I think he had a limited practice today. Maybe.
Yeah, he's on a limited practice too. So is Mark DeMarcado did not practice. Can't be sure if that's injury related or the coach told him to get the hell away. Zay Jones also did not practice. So, for Kyler Murray, it's a foot injury, and one of the things you would say that you like about him is his mobility. We haven't seen Green Bay's pass rush be as good as I think we thought it would be when they acquired Micah Parsons, but Arizona does not strike me as having a great line. They don't have a great running game right now, and if Kyler Murray is kind of more statuesque, I think this could be a sad game for Cardinals fans.
Well, and we have seen year after year, when Murray gets banged up in his feet and legs, it really affects his passing game. He loses his ability to run, and for whatever reason, being able to set that base and throw, which isn't necessarily his strong suit, goes away, and he really struggles. So I'm taking the Packers.
I'm taking the Packers too. When you're a hobbit, you probably need strong ankles if you want to throw the ball. Sunday Night Football, the 3-2 Atlanta Falcons, fresh off their win over Buffalo, are at the 4-2 San Francisco 49ers. Dennis, Kyle Pitts, we've seen some good games, but we've seen some kind of fadeaway games. He's currently tight end 15, averaging a little more than 10 points per game, which would actually be better than David Njoku this season. He just hasn't played as many games. So how are you feeling about Pitts as a lineup option?
So Pitts has had 2 tight end 1 weeks and 2 tight end 2 weeks and 1 tight end 3 weeks. He isn't consistent. And for that matter, that offense isn't consistent. They got shut out by Carolina, who we by and large don't think Carolina is a great team. We feel like they're making strides, they're getting better, but to shut out Atlanta when you've got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts certainly seemed wild to me. I think Pitts, he's one of those tight end 8 to 18 streamer guys, and you just got to kind of roll the dice with him. I'm probably sitting him this week in that situation because they're on the road and we're seeing some pretty bad home road splits with Michael Penix in Atlanta. So I think Atlanta can take a big step here if they can go into San Francisco and A, play well, and B, win the game. But I'm not sold on that.
Speaking of those 49ers, a lot of rumors this week is that we are going to see another game where they feature Kendrick Bourne, which would make sense. Pearsall's still not practicing.
Who else are they going to feature, right?
Still has no ribs. So is Kendrick Bourne a start for you this week?
He's wide receiver 36 on the season. He didn't play much at all the first 2 or 3 weeks. So Kendrick Bourne is a perfect example of a sell high guy because he'll have a few really good weeks, but he historically has not put together a season-long campaign as a top-end wide receiver. So if you're rostering Kendrick Bourne right now, this may be just the time to sell him. You can sell, hey, at best, Brandon Ayuk is going to start practicing in week 10. Juwan Jennings is still banged up. George Kittle is not going to be back for a couple more weeks.
Actually, Kittle could be back as soon as this week. He started practicing again. They opened his window. I'm not saying he will be, but that made me feel a little bit better.
So I like Kendrick Bourne for what he is, which in my eyes, he's a bye week guy. He's a flex. He's got some flex appeal, but by and large, because I don't trust him to continue to produce.
I'm taking the 49ers.
I tried to find excuses to pick the Falcons, but that home road split scares me, so I'm going Niners.
Yeah, you never know when you're going to get that 30-0 game that they threw in Carolina. Monday Night Football, we have a doubleheader again. This is a true doubleheader. One of them starting at 8 Eastern, one start at 7 Eastern, one starting at 10 Eastern. First game at 5-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 4-2 Detroit Lions. Rachaad White stepped in and played well, was running back 10 last week. Well, he's going to have to do it again. No Bucky Irving this week. It does not sound like Mike Evans is going to be quite ready. Not sounding like Chris Godwin's going to be ready. And Emeka Egbuka is expected to be out as well. Still no Jalen McMillan. So what are you expecting from Rachaad White?
Well, I was trying to pull up his numbers from a couple years ago. All right. There we are. White has held this position being the starting job, running back job for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was RB4 in 2023. So am I surprised that he was able to step in and play well? No. He's an exceptionally good pass catching back. He's got some issues with his vision when it comes to running the ball. Detroit gives up the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs. And, aside from Quinshon Judkins getting 82 yards on him in, I think, week 3, Josh Jacobs was the next highest running back with 66 yards. The Lions do give up the 10th most receptions to running backs, but the 12th fewest passing yards to running backs, which is where you're probably hoping Rachaad White is going to make his hay. I think White's going to be, a middling RB2 in this game, but you'll take that. You'll take a mid to low RB2 from a backup against a team like the Lions with Mike Evans not back, Chris Godwin out, Emeka Egbuka out. They're going to have to use the guys that they have trust with, which is going to be Rachaad White. It's going to be Cade Otton. And then we'll see what happens with Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson. Are these guys able to earn some targets?
Meanwhile, for Detroit, that backfield combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Sonic and Knuckles, has been a foundational piece of their offense. They're still doing pretty well this year. Some up and down games a little bit, but Gibbs, running back 8, David Montgomery, running back 15. The Lions are at home. Tampa Bay, a little bit of a tougher defensive front, but are you still feeling good about rolling those guys out in week 7?
In week 7, I feel really good about rolling out Gibbs and not as good about David Montgomery. I think Montgomery is probably in flex territory this week. Tampa gives up the 3rd most passing yards to running backs. And I get it. David Montgomery is a good pass catcher, but Jahmyr Gibbs is the pass catching back. He's more explosive. He's better in space. Tampa gives up the 5th fewest rushing yards to running backs. So That's where they like to use David Montgomery. They get him more of his touches carrying the ball, and it's a little more even split with Jahmyr Gibbs between run and pass. But Tampa does give up the 7th highest yards per pass attempt. This could be a Jameson Williams game is who I'm thinking, like in the passing game. We could see Jameson have one of his patented, 5-catch, 100-yard, 2-touchdown kind of games here.
I am taking the Lions.
So am I.
Second half of the Monday night doubleheader, the 2-3 Houston Texans at the 4-2 Seattle Seahawks. Dennis, this Texans backfield continues to be a quagmire. The bye week did not help Joe Mixon. They said his availability for the 2025 season is yet to be determined, but maybe they'll have clarity. I don't even think
they know where Joe Mixon's at.
They said they may have clarity in 3 or 4 more weeks, so it's not sounding good for him. We thought that maybe it was time for prime Woody Marks, but in the last game before they went on bye, Marks pretty much disappeared with 2.4 points, which had been about his standard for the season, and we saw good old Nick Chubb leading the way once again. So what are you doing with this Texans backfield? Are you just kind of avoiding it?
Actually, this week, I'm pretty comfortable with Marks. Chubb is RB36 on the season. Marks is RB40. But Seattle gives up the most receptions to running backs in the NFL. And what's Woody Marks' job? He's the pass-catching back, which means Dario Ogunbowale is going to get 10 targets. I like Marks. I think Houston came out a couple weeks ago, and even after Marks had the big game, and they said, "Look, we see him as a pass catching back." They told us we're not gonna give him 20 carries. We're gonna sprinkle in some carries, give him the majority of the targets out of the backfield, and let him be productive that way. Nick Chubb will get his 12 carries for 60 yards, and maybe he gets a touchdown, maybe he doesn't.
I didn't even think they see him. I don't even think they see him as a primary receiving back. He only has 9 targets and 6 receptions all season.
Well,
he basically had. I know, but he basically had one game that was kind of a blip. I think Ogunbowale was out that week, and the week after that, it went back to 7 carries and 1 target. 0 receptions in that last game before the bye. He had 0 targets week 1, 1 target week 2, 2 targets in week 3. Then in week 4, sudden explosion, 17 carries and 5 targets, probably because people were banged up, and then went right back to almost nothing.
Well, and we're coming off a bye week, so he'll have had opportunity to get even more comfortable with what they're looking for him. So, I get the hesitation. If I need to start one of these guys this week, I'm starting Marks.
Meanwhile, we talked a little bit on Tuesday about the frustrating lack of snaps for Ken Walker. I actually looked at it. The only game where he's had 50 or more % of the snaps played was the week that Zach Charbonnet was out with injury. Charbonnet hasn't been particularly efficient, but Walker not getting enough volume and not getting volume in the places you'd like to see in either a hurry-up offense or in the red zone. How are you feeling about this backfield for Seattle?
It's kind of tough. I mean, Walker's RB24. He's averaging 11.4 points per game. Charbonnet is RB42, but he's only averaging 8.1 points per game. We see them use Charbonnet in the 4-minute offense. We see him use Charbonnet at the goal line because he's the bigger back. Walker's got to earn his touches there. He's got to make big plays. That's his bread and butter. And for years we've talked about, look, sometimes Walker just needs to learn, take the 3 or 4 yards, quit bouncing everything outside. But it almost feels like now this new regime has said, look, we're okay with the Barry Sanders model. We get it. It's going to be a 1, a 2, a -1, a 3, a -2, a 65. And it seems like the new Seattle regime, that's what they're looking for out of Walker. But the last couple of years, he's been hammered on that. Look, go to the hole. It's blocked. Follow your blocks. Go to the hole. And it's hampering his explosiveness this year.
I'm taking the Seahawks.
I'm going to go with my fighting CJ Strouds.
I think this could end up being kind of a lower scoring game because both teams would like to run and play defense, and both teams have one good receiver. So
right.
Should be.
Houston's. I think CJ Stroud's only thrown 3 touchdowns this year.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back on Tuesday with a full recap of Week 7. To fill the time, what can people do?
So head on over to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search button, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe, give us a like.
Well, that'll do it for us this week. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Best of luck with your games, and we will see you on Tuesday.